And now we're down to the final video for the ideology and party ID module. I'm sure you're happy about that. And in this video, what I want to do is I want to explain the answer to a question that I frequently get from students about the US political system as it relates to political parties. And what they ask constantly is, why does the United States have a two-party system? Now, what I mean by a two-party system is that basically there are only two political parties that win. I know that probably bothers a lot of you, but that's just the reality. And as a political scientist, my job is to understand, excuse me while I'm getting comfortable here, my job is to understand the realities of our political system and why they happen. And so why does the US have a two-party system, especially when some polls show that a lot of people are unhappy with both the parties? Why isn't there just another third party that people could vote for? And unfortunately, I have to give you a very political sciencey answer. And it has to do with something called Duverget's law. Now, first of all, Duverget, don't worry if you know how to pronounce that. It looks like Duverger. Just if you think Duverger, then you'll be able to write it more easily. Second, it's a law, not a law passed by Congress. It's not even really a law. A lot of times political scientists want to feel like what we're doing is similar to the hard sciences. So they have a law of gravity. There are certain patterns that they've identified that happen all the time. And so political scientists are always trying to come up with the equivalent of a scientific law. There are no scientific laws in politics because people are weird and we do things randomly. And so there can't be any law because we behave differently under different circumstances. So probably would be better to call it Duverget's tendency, but everybody calls it Duverget's law. So let me explain what Duverget's law is, and then in this case, the elaboration is going to be most of the lecture video. So here's Duverget's law in a sentence. Two-party systems develop in all political systems that have single-member districts and winner-take-all rules. And when I say winner-take-all rules, I'm referring to plurality rules. So we've talked about plurality already. We'll go over it one more time in the context of Duverget's law. What happened is Maurice Duverget, a political scientist, looked through historical examples and found a number of instances of political systems that had these two conditions that I'm mentioning, single-member districts and winner-take-all rules. And what he found is in each of these instances, with some exceptions, what happened was a two-party system developed, hence Duverget's law. So first I want to talk about the first condition, and then I'll talk about the second condition. And the idea being that when both those conditions are present, the political system is going to turn out to be a two-party system. Now, as you'll see, condition 1 and condition 2 kind of go together. So that'll make more sense in one moment. When we're referring to a single member district, this is condition number 1. What that means is only one person represents the district to which they were elected. So for example, on the lecture notes, I have a map of the 25th Congressional District, right? Because we have a system in which we have single member districts, what that means is after we have an election for the member of the House of Representatives, only one person is going to represent that district, only one person. And so in 2020, for example, Mike Garcia was elected and he represented the entirety of the 25th Congressional District. We have single member districts. And oftentimes, by the way, when there are single member districts, when you go to vote, you're voting for individual candidates. You're voting for individual candidates. So Mike Garcia's name is on there, other people's names are on there, and you're voting for an individual candidate. Now, in other political systems, they have something called a multi-member district. In these systems, what happens is when you go to vote, you don't vote for an individual person, you actually vote for a party or a party slate, a group of people who are running together. So if you can imagine, when you go to vote, you're voting for Democrats, right? And there's a list of Democrats, not just in our congressional district, the 25th, but in all the congressional districts, and in not just the congressional districts, the governor, member of the assembly, member of the state senate. You're voting for a slate of people, all who are in the same party. And so you're not voting for a person, you're voting for a party. So for example, let's say we have an election in the 25th congressional district, but again, it also covers the state assembly, it also covers the Board of Equalization, it also covers a number of elected offices. And let's say Party A gets 60% of the vote. Party B gets 20% of the vote, and Party C gets 20% of the vote. Let's suppose that the 25th congressional district had 5 members who represented the 25th congressional district. Well, what would happen is 3 representatives would come from Party A, 1 representative would come from Party B, and 1 representative would come from Party C. Right? And so what can happen is if you're a party that doesn't get the most votes, you can still wind up getting some representation. So if Party B is a Democratic Party and Party C is the Reform Party, right, they can wind up having representatives go to the legislature and represent the district. Well, we don't have multi-member districts. We have single-member districts. There's only one person representing each district. So we go and we vote for individuals, not parties, and then one person represents the district. So condition 1, single member districts, which is what we have in our political system. Condition 2 is just that we have winner take all rules, plurality rules. The person with the most votes winds up winning, and that's what we have now. For Mike Garcia to have won in 2020, he didn't need a majority of votes. He just needed one more vote than whoever came in second place. I believe it was Christy Smith, but one more vote than the person who came in second place, and that's fine. Whether he had a majority or didn't have a majority is irrelevant. So as long as those 2 conditions are met, condition 1, single member districts where only one person represents the district, and condition 2, they have winner take all rules, that's when you wind up with a 2-party system, and that's what we have. We have a 2-party system. So now you can ask yourself, will there ever be a 3rd party in American politics? Well, if you look historically, what you'll find is the answer is no. There have never been 3 viable parties in our political system because of Duverget's law. What has happened is that one of the parties has split. So back in the 1900s, the Republican Party split. There was the Democratic Party, there was a Republican Party, and Teddy Roosevelt, who was a Republican, ran as the Bull Moose Party. And what he wound up doing is he wound up splitting the conservative vote, and so the Democrat wound up winning. Once they realized that, the Republicans got their act together and they became more uniform. So what happens is when there's a 3rd party, generally what it does is it winds up hurting the party that it's closest to, and then they go away. So will there be a 3rd party in the United States? No, there won't, unless the rules are changed, the winner-take-all rules and the single-member district rules. Is that ever going to change? Well, think about it. The Democrats and the Republicans may not agree on very many things, but one of the things they do agree on is they don't want more competition, okay? And so I don't think they're going to change the rules anytime soon. So we are always going to have a 2-party system. Deal with it. Back to the bundles that I talked about. If you're going to be a participant in our political system, you're going to have to look at the Democratic bundle, you're going to have to look at the Republican bundle and decide which one you support the most, or you're going to be doing a ton of research every election. Now, at the very end, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this, but I know that there are a lot of students who don't really know whether they're a Democrat or whether they're a Republican. So what I've done here is I've just created a list of views of Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats are listed on the left, the Republicans are listed on the right, and this might give you a clue as to whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat. Think of the issues on the left-hand column as the Democratic bundle. Think of the issues on the right-hand side as the Republican bundle. Now, it doesn't fit everybody, right? Not all Democrats believe what's on the left-hand side. Not all Republicans believe what's on the right-hand side. But it does fit a majority of the members of the respective parties. And so I just wanted to include this for those of you who are thinking like, I don't know. You're telling me I need to figure out which bundle I like, and I just don't know. Now, one word of caution. You can go onto the internet and you can find all kinds of things that, take, am I a Democrat or a Republican? And one of the things that I've noticed oftentimes is when you take those, in the end, when you're done taking the quiz, it will tell you where you are in terms of your ideology, not your party ID. So even though you're asking them, am I a Republican or am I a Democrat, what they're really answering is, am I liberal, conservative, or moderate? So just keep that in mind. But since I've stressed to you so much that we need to keep party ID and ideology separate and distinct, I just wanted to warn you about some of those online things that they do. And for the most part, the ones that I've seen, they're pretty reliable. Some are kind of stupid, but they're pretty reliable, and they do a good job of predicting whether somebody is a Democrat or a Republican. And so now, perhaps mercifully, we're done with political parties.